What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another edition of the Transfer View. And my, oh my, we've got a lot to get into this morning, folks. Indeed, because we've got to make a choice. We've got to make a choice, apparently, because it looks like maybe it's just going to be one centre-back signing this summer, not two, just one. It's going to be either Matthijs de Ligt or Lenny Yoro, and maybe not both, coming from credible sources from David Ornstein. So we'll be chatting about that. We'll be chatting a little bit about Mason Greenwood, the latest when it comes to that, looking more and more likely, getting closer and closer and closer to a move to Marseille. The expectation is he's going to say yes anytime soon. We could get a here we go anytime soon. We're also going to be talking about Erik ten Hag's reaction to yesterday's first pre-season match for Manchester United, pre-season defeat against Rosenborg, and how he wasn't happy with the performance, rightfully so, but we'll chat a little bit about the reaction yesterday as well, because, my goodness me, the reaction was just a little bit strong. just a little bit strong on social media and just around, and I think it stems from probably last season, doesn't it? And I hope for change pretty quickly, even though the majority of the people were hoping to change weren't even playing yesterday. So we'll chat about all of that. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. I can see you all getting involved in the chat. Kazi says, good morning, guys. My style advisor says, morning, Owen. Tabrez says, big up, Owen. Simon says, big up, UV fam. See a lot of people getting involved indeed. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well whilst you're at it. Let's start off with this centre-back stuff, because this is actually really, really interesting. So we've seen the last couple of days when it comes to Lenny Yoro that he's trying to make his mind up. What does he want to do? Does he still want to join Real Madrid? Is he going, no, I'm sorry, Manchester United, flattered by the interest, but my heart's set on Real Madrid. I know they're not willing to pay the money to Lille that Lille are looking for, but I've got a year left on my contract, so either Lille agrees a deal with Real Madrid right now, or I do the Mbappe, I wait a year, I'll go on a free. Meanwhile, Manchester United, they've had a bid agreed, and a fee agreed with Lille, and they're just hoping they can convince the 18-year-old to join Manchester United. Meanwhile, we're working on other deals for other centre-backs, namely Matthijs de Ligt. The only thing we haven't agreed there is a price, a fee with Bayern Munich, but we have agreed with him a contract, a 5-year contract for a certain amount of money. So many people were assuming, myself included here, well, it looks like we're going to be going for a couple of centre-backs this summer. We'd also heard other reports. I think Dama Chef and others had said it can't be ruled out that Manchester United could get 2, maybe even 3 centre-backs this summer. Well, David Ornstein this morning has kind of poured the proverbial cold water on that story, suggesting it's going to have to be one or the other, and maybe just one centre-back. Here is what he has said in quite a lengthy article for The Athletic. Now, we've spoken about the business that Manchester United are doing. It's namely sort of a bigger, wider piece on Lenny Yoro, really, a kind of get-to-know-him kind of article. He says, in parallel, United have been pursuing moves for Matthijs de Ligt and Lenny Yoro. Progress has been achieved on each front recently, though the current expectation is they would recruit one or the other as opposed to both. So once again, the expectation, according to David Ornstein, sirens in the chat early on as always, but the expectation is that it would be one or the other as opposed to both. Now there is the expectation, but it would be one or the other as opposed to both of them. Maybe it means that it would just be one of these two plus another, perhaps. I don't know. It continues by saying, given a deal for De Ligt looks relatively straightforward if United choose to proceed, at present they seem to be prioritising Yoro and exploring whether the Frenchman can be convinced to join them rather than hold out for Real Madrid. Yoro's first choice is Madrid, but they are yet to show any indication of paying the level of fee that Lille have accepted from United, which has led the Ligue 1 club to favour doing business with their Premier League counterparts. Again, we have heard that the president of Lille has kind of been saying to Lenny Yoro, it would be better for us if you join Manchester United. We prefer it if you join Manchester United, but everything rests on the shoulders of the 18-year-old. Continues by saying, if Yoro is to make a switch this summer, his Lille terms end in 2025, so they do not want to lose him for free, and Madrid cannot strike a deal, will he instead accept a switch to United? That is the burning question, and strong efforts continued at Old Trafford to swing the outcome in their direction. Suitors, including Liverpool, backed off after being told of Yoro's chosen destination, but United have persisted, and so long as the door is is ajar, they will keep trying, which again kind of stokes the fear flames a little bit there, doesn't it? Maybe suggesting that while other clubs said we're not even going to get involved because he only wants to go to Real Madrid. Meanwhile, Manchester United say we believe we can convince him. We believe that despite him wanting to go to Real Madrid, we can convince him to join the club. Ornstein concludes saying everything therefore rests on the 18-year-old talent and his final decision. That means the situation is definitely worth keeping a close eye on in the coming days and potentially weeks. Now, some more news comes actually out from France, some French-based reporting here, suggesting that Lenny Yoro doesn't know for sure whether he wants to join Manchester United or Real Madrid, kind of painting a picture of conflict in the mind of the young defender. Yoro is not very motivated to join Manchester United at the moment. His agent, George Mendes, is pushing him for him to join Real Madrid. Lenny Yoro is worried that Real Madrid have not increased their offer for him, and having told Lille that he does not intend to stay, he wants his future transfer to be settled sooner rather than later. Finally, Fabrizio Romano has kind of echoed what everyone else has said by saying Lenny Yoro's future depends again on players' decision. The Lille president is pushing for Yoro to join Manchester United after an official bid was accepted for 50+ million euros and add-ons last week. Yoro's preference remains Real Madrid. It's only up to the player. Talks with PSG currently gone cold. So we do know it's a two-horse race for Lenny Yoro, and there's a lot to kind of break down involved in all of that there, isn't it? My initial reaction when I was seeing this morning is it kind of confirmed what I already thought about United in this transfer window. Is I still say that I think a lot of reporting and a lot of reporters don't know what's going on at Manchester United. They don't know what's going on at the club. They don't really know what the strategy is. They don't really know who Manchester United are going for until it's quite late. I mean, remember, with this whole Lenny Yoro stuff, it was like, I mean, you saw a couple of articles, a couple of tweets going, Man United are interested, and you go, oh, okay. But lots of clubs were interested. Like they mentioned there, Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid, they were all interested. And then next thing you know, it was like, Man United have put a bid in. Oh, by the way, it's been accepted. It was that quick. Done. And that seemingly came out of nowhere, and then I was like, man, is this Lenny Yoro thing real? That's quite surprising. It was the same with Ligt, wasn't it? Of like, Man United might be interested, but it was very, very sort of surface level, sort of superficial stuff. Next thing you know, it's like they've agreed a contract with him. The only thing to do is agree a fee with Bayern Munich. The deal on the player side is basically done. I was like, whoa, that was pretty fast. And it was kind of, it's been the same. Well, even with Jared Brantford, we know that one's not happening now, don't we, of course, but even that one was like, oh, Man United are interested, and it's been like that for months, hasn't it? Oh, Man United might be interested in Jan Brantford. Then suddenly overnight it was like, yeah, they've agreed a contract, it's just agreeing something with Everton. Couldn't agree something with Everton because their price was too high. United move on pretty quickly. So to definitively say, well, the expectation is it's only going to be Lenny Yoro or Matthijs de Ligt, and it's going to be one centre-back signing, I look at that and go, it seems somewhat sort of logical guesswork, perhaps. And it's not, who am I to come on here and go, David Ornstein don't know what he's talking about, because of course he does. I mean, he's one of the most, arguably the most credible reporter when it comes to transfers, and he's very careful with what he says and what he reports. But I look at it as still as a situation of Manchester United keeping their options open, and I still think everything's on the table for Manchester United this summer. I really do. I think that it's one of those ones that this morning will kind of generate, I suppose, some fear, some eye rolling, particularly off the back of yesterday as well, which tensions, I don't know why, but tensions are already high once again. About, oh, here we go, pre-season, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. As they mentioned in the article, the only thing to do for the De Ligt deal is just agree a fee with Bayern Munich, and reportedly, whilst the deal hasn't been agreed, it's not a million miles off. Everyone kind of knows the parameters on that one. The Yoro one, things could move really, really quickly when you think about it. All he's got to do is say yes or no. If he says yes, then it's done, isn't it? If he says no, then we move on pretty quickly. So and when the reporting there is saying about it'd only be Yoro or De Ligt, who's to say it won't be someone else? It might be someone else after that. So it's an interesting one. It's definitely an interesting one. But I don't know if it's sort of struck the fear that maybe it has in other people. I don't know if it struck the sort of outrage, that people, this is the problem, we're not going to be getting this. If we get one centre-back, then, well, again, it depends on outgoings too, doesn't it? Raphael Varane's gone. There is a strong, it mentions in the article, there's a strong push to get rid of Victor Lindelof. We've just sold Willy Campoala. So logically, you would get probably 2 centre-backs in to replace that. Again, it will probably depend on outgoings, but we shall see. So I still think my still belief is when it comes to Ineos and how they're moving in the transfer window is not a lot of people know. Not a lot of people know, and everyone's trying to figure out really what's going on. But Manchester United are certainly keeping their options open, and I think they're keeping their options open so that they can possibly pull off multiple deals at the same time. So I think to definitively suggest that Manchester United we're only going to get one centre-back this summer, I don't think we can definitively say that. And to be fair, that's what Ornstein says in the article there. He says the expectation is it'd be one or the other, but we've had a lot of things that we expected in the last few months regarding Manchester United, and just the opposite has happened. It was expected that Dan Ashworth wouldn't be in place by the summer. He's actively involved in both of these transfers, right? So it was expected that Jadon Sancho wouldn't return to Manchester United training or put the differences aside with Erik ten Hag. He's in training. He might even play on Saturday for Manchester United. He might put on the Manchester United shirt again. So a lot of these expectations, what we think is going to happen, a lot of the time recently, the opposite is coming to happen. So I don't think we can rule out anything when it comes to Manchester United in this summer transfer window, to be honest with you. A couple of super chats here. JP87TM says, morning all, big love's been a member for 2 years. Got the, what colour is that badge? Is it sort of a lightish blue? Teal? Are we going with teal? Is that what it is? But big up, appreciate 2 years of support. Appreciate all the members. Speaking of which, Red Devils Down Under says, if Yoro doesn't want to come, then walk away from the efforts in signing him. We only want players who want to come. Madrid are elite, United not yet. Well, and again, that's the interesting part of the article, isn't it? Of, when Ornstein's saying, well, Liverpool, they were interested, but they backed away, seemingly because they thought he only had eyes on Real Madrid, so they didn't want to get involved pursuing a player and wasn't interested in joining. We've done that in the past with Frankie de Jong. We had a deal agreed with Barcelona, but the player's like, I don't want to leave, and it's the player's call at the end of the day. You would hope, with the new leadership team at Old Trafford, with the new footballing structure, with Omar Barada, with Dan Ashworth, with Christopher Vivell, those guys that are involved in those transfer talks and negotiations, that they believe they have seen something, or they've been given some indication, whether it be from Yoro, whether it be from his agent, whether it be from the Lille president or whoever, that there is a possibility to get this deal over the line. Because if they've had zero indication that he's got any interest in joining Manchester United, then I would agree with you. You'd say, why are you even moving forward with this deal? But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because you'd like to think if, when they were chatting, because again, you don't just put the bid in without having any talks with the player's representatives. You might not have direct talks with the player or anything like that. That might come in. That might be happening right now. That might be, Barada, Ashworth, Erik ten Hag having chats with the player, perhaps. But prior to put the bid in, there must have been at least some kind of, you would hope anyway, some kind of indication of, okay, is it so 100% confirmed he only wants to go to Real Madrid, he's only going to go there, absolutely no chance he goes anywhere else? And if they said, well, that's not necessarily the case, then maybe that's the indication that Man United were looking for or something. But I agree with you. If they were told from the outset, or they've not been given any indication to suggest it's Real Madrid, it's anything but Real Madrid, then you would say, why are you wasting your time? So I would hope that's not the case. That would have been a Man United thing to do in the past, definitely. Absolutely Man United thing to do in the past. But we shall see. Amanor says, does that mean Lindelof / Maguire are still staying? One of them will, I think. One of them will. This is when I go back to managing expectations of this summer in terms of players that are leaving. I think Victor Lindelof probably leaves. I think Harry Maguire probably ends up staying, to be honest with you. The Harry Maguire exit is far more difficult to do than Victor Lindelof. Just because of how much money he's on, 190k. You're going to look at clubs, if he was to move, could move abroad, can't rule that out, but you'd think he'd most likely move to a Premier League club. Which teams are going to pick that up? It'd probably be a pay cut, which he might be willing to take, but how are they going to bridge the gap when it comes to that? How many years has he got left? Is it a couple of years left, I think, on his contract? He signed like this mega long contract in the first place. Was it like 7 years or something ridiculous? So I think Maguire ends up staying and Lindelof ends up going, to be honest with you. But I don't think both of them stay. I think one of them definitely go. Harry says Manchester United fans equal pessimism and impatience. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And Blue Dabba Dee furious. Don't you dare say that. I don't know what will happen to Blue Dabba Dee if Victor Lindelof does go. if Lindelof does go, the captain of the forget the Ten Hag Defence League, forget the Southgate Defence League, the Lindelof Defence League. Okay, to be fair, since day one, never the faith has never been shook when it comes to that. Never, ever, ever. So yeah, big up on Blue Dabba Dee. But that is the latest when it comes to the centre back news. Yoro or Ligt, possibly, according to David Ornstein. What happens, we shall see. I'd obviously like both. If I had to predict what's going to happen, you would say Ligt, I think, is far more likely. Far more likely. I know yesterday there was Florian Plettenberg talking about Jonathan Tah and Manchester United being interested in him. I think that is a bit of a move to sort of speed up everything over there in Germany. So obviously Bayern are looking to sell De Ligt to bring in Tah. Manchester United are looking to close this deal for De Ligt. So it's quite convenient, isn't it, that now Manchester United are interested in Tah, and it's like, oh, we could take that, and then you're stuck with De Ligt. You know, like, it just feels a bit of a manoeuvring kind of thing. I don't think we get Tah. I think that we end up getting De Ligt. I think that's the one that's most likely. The Yoro one, you know, heart says yes, head says no. You know, I still think that the likelihood is probably that he ends up going to Real Madrid, because as much as we Manchester United fans talk about the size of the club and the scope of the club, it's a pretty difficult choice, isn't it? It's a pretty difficult choice in the sense of, you know, if he goes to Real Madrid, guaranteed trophies, playing with some of the best players in the world, they're assembling this, you know, this like Avengers style or young Avengers style, like the best young players across Europe, aren't they? Mbappe's there, you got Endrick there, you obviously got Vinny, you got Bellingham, you got Camavinga, Tchouaméni. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? The team that they're generating and they're building, and Lenny Yoro would want to be a part of that. But as I mentioned before, if the new football leadership team can pull it off, if they have the ability to pull this transfer off, they deserve a lot of credit, a huge amount of credit. Amanor says, where is Fleck and KG? Will there be a full view? Fleck is on holiday, as we mentioned last Saturday on the Trinity. Fleck is on holiday. He will be back, though, for the weekend for the game in Edinburgh against Rangers. And KG he has to attend something this morning, so that's why they're not here as well. But appreciate the concern. They've quit. They left me up. I'm doing it all by myself. I'm running the channel by myself. Everything's on fire around me. I'm like that dog in that meme when it's the flames are licking up around me, and I'm going, everything's fine. It's gonna be fine. No problem. Though. In fact, KG will be on more transfer views with me this week as well. So yes, and you might even see him later on today on the channel. Perhaps you have to wait and see. So there you go. Let's move on. If you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe to bottom right hand corner. Let's talk a little bit about Mason Greenwood. What's the latest when it comes to Mason Greenwood and his move to Marseille? Gianluca Di Marzio saying quite late last night that Mason Greenwood is slowly moving towards Marseille. The French club are expecting Greenwood's final yes this evening. Now, it must be stressed. Didn't hear anything yesterday evening. So probably a decision coming today regarding Greenwood to Marseille. There was a bit of things slowing down a little bit on that one. Wasn't there last week, of course, with the inevitable pushback. And that's why, you know, we spoke about this previously, didn't we? Talking about how if it was a talent situation, of course his transfer wouldn't be, 25 million quid, something like that, plus add-ons, plus the salon clause, plus everything else associated with it. It'd be much higher than that. But the reason it's slowed down is the reason why it's 25 million, because there will be inevitable backlash. So, there was comments from the Marseille mayor getting involved, which I don't think has dissuaded Marseille too much. Of course, Roberto De Zerbi came out saying that he wanted the club to sign him and he was going to protect Greenwood and all that kind of stuff. So it looks like this one's still going to happen. I know because of that, it looked like maybe Lazio were back in the race, which is, I think, why Gianluca Damasio can effectively report on this, because, of course, Italian-based journalists, and maybe he's heard that from sources close to Lazio. I think even the Lazio president came out, didn't he, whether it was yesterday or the day before, saying, I offered this amount of money for Mason Greenwood and with this salon clause and blah, blah, blah. But it looks like he's going to be going to Marseille, and we could be actually getting a here we go from Fabrizio Romano, I think, pretty soon. That it could even be today. I mean, it's a bit like the Lenny Yoro one, in the sense that the transfer fee is agreed. That's all done. So if Mason Greenwood says yes and says to Marseille, yep, I'm happy to join, I'm happy to do this deal, let's do it, I'm going to go to Marseille, then it's here we go. Then it's a deal done. Just a couple of things to iron out, some sort of salary things to iron out, but it'll be pretty much a done deal, won't it? So the quicker that one can get done, of course, the better for United, because, of course, if that one can get done quickly, it's pure profit, and we can reinvest that into another transfer, whatever that transfer may be, whether it is Ligt, whether it is Lenny Yoro, whether it is someone else, we don't know. Whether it is going after Ugarte in midfield, or maybe even a left back. We still really need a left back. Absolutely, we need a left back. But the quicker this one gets done, the better. And then everyone can just collectively move on, can't they? And it was a bit like chatting about the Jadon Sancho stuff, which I'm always a bit reluctant to compare that, because it's really completely different situations. But in terms of just, there's a bit of, there's baggage, shall we say, involved, but I'm a bit reluctant to compare. You just want to move on, don't you? You just want to move on. You just want to focus on the season ahead, and we'll talk about this in just a second when it comes to the reaction to yesterday. So you want to focus on the season ahead. You want to be front-facing. You don't want to be dwelling on the past too much. Last season was last season. The seasons before were the seasons before. And you just kind of want to be able to put all of these things that were difficult things for Manchester United to deal with last season or over the last few seasons to rest, and be able to focus on improving and focus on bringing people in and getting better, really. So I think the quicker this one is done is better for everyone involved as well. I think Mason Greenwood would want his future determined and sorted out too, and hopefully we get something done pretty quickly. And then as far as the future, if it really works out for him at Marseille, which I think it probably will. I mean, again, it's not an issue of talent or anything like that. And he does move to another club. Manchester United are protected in that regard, because, of course, they've got the salon fee, and any future money that they generate will be a pure profit situation too, which will be the case if the money that comes in now will be pure profit. And we'd have already sold a couple of academy graduates this summer. Mason Greenwood, of course, Willy Camboala, that one was confirmed yesterday. So it's all money that can be put back into the squad, which is encouraging. Amanor says, will there be a full view this week with Mina and Warsal? Well, usually it would be on a Monday, which of course we couldn't do yesterday because the match was on. It might be rearranged this week. See if we can do one in the middle of the week. Failing that, it'll probably be at the weekend as well. Probably Sunday or Monday, maybe something like that. But we shall see. Stay tuned for that one. When it comes to all of that, the good thing to always check is the sidebar. If it's on the sidebar, it'll be on the docket, and it'll be coming soon, indeed. Let's talk about yesterday. Let's talk about the pre-season. Let's talk about that game. Now, if you missed it yesterday, first of all, you didn't miss much. You really did not miss much. Rosenborg defeated Manchester United in the first pre-season fixture. And it's a pre-season fixture. Manchester United's pre-season is always unique because, unlike a lot of other clubs, for instance, when you check out the pre-season fixtures of Arsenal, of Chelsea, of Manchester City, of Liverpool. All of their pre-season fixtures start in about 10 days' time, 12 days' time, something like that is when it starts with their respective tours. Manchester United's pre-season starts very, very early. So Manchester United lost yesterday. There was maybe, 4 or 5 senior players in the squad with a week's training. The rest are all academy players. A lot of the other senior players were still at Carrington. Rosenberg, remember, because you know what's crazy as well is the weird narrative going. I can see it in the chat here of saying PJ, it's pre-season for them as well. It's literally not. That's what I loved yesterday. It's their pre-season as well, so don't even start that one. It's genuinely not. But people couldn't even be bothered to do the research on that one, or even watch the game because it was said that on commentary. They're halfway through the season. They're not having a great season, mind you, but it's something to consider. And Erik ten Hag, rightfully so, was really annoyed yesterday by the performance. Because guess what? It was shit. Man United were rubbish yesterday. They were. It was almost like watching a pre-season game where they've trained for a week and they're not sharp at all and they were rubbish. Now, the senior players, you would expect more from them just in general. You would expect Manchester United to play better. They're professional footballers. So, obviously, you would expect better. But the amount of just freak out involved in it yesterday was insane. Now, Erik ten Hag came out yesterday, and rightfully so, criticised the performance because it was rubbish. I'd be concerned if he didn't. Here's what he said. He said, first of all, talking about Vitek, who's Manchester United's best player yesterday, made a plethora of really impressive saves. And Ten Hag says, let's say he had the opportunity to shine thanks to the team's performance, which was not good enough, which is true. It wasn't good enough. He says the result is not secondary, but the standard at Manchester United is to win, not lose. The performance was below our standard. He also said, this is not the standard for top football. We can't be match fit at this moment. They have a much higher fitness level, but we are Manchester United, we must perform better. So which obviously, and I agree with everything he said there, because the moment a manager comes out, yeah, don't worry about it, it's not, and I think it's almost like a misinterpretation, isn't it? Because when you say that, well, Man United played rubbish yesterday, but it's only pre-season, it's about getting, building up some fitness, performance needs to be way better, but, it's not the end of the world. I think that gets interpreted like, you sort of say, who cares? Who cares? Oh, Man United actually played well yesterday, or I really don't care. Obviously, they Manchester United should play better, and the expectation is that when you show up, when you put on the Manchester United shirt, you perform and you don't play badly. And Manchester United were really poor yesterday. I mean, to be honest, if you're going to really judge it, you'd have to only judge the first 45 minutes because the second 45 was the entire academy. I mean, the academy. Are we going to be doing that are we going to do that for academy games this season? If an academy team loses, we're going to be like Erik ten Hag out, all that kind of stuff. Because the second half, you might as well not even bother. If you're going to judge it, you judge the first half. And then that's again, it gets into how ridiculous it is because it's 45 minutes of the first pre-season match. Man United were rubbish. Yeah, they were. And it needs to be better, way better. But spare me the stuff where it's like, well, this is what you did last season. This is what you did last season. You said that it didn't matter, blah, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong. If Manchester United play like that in, let's say, the final pre-season game, or where the majority of the senior players are back, not all of them, but the majority of the senior players back, and they've been training for 5 weeks at that point, and they're not looking sharp and they're conceding lots of chances, then absolutely, then you go, this is a real concern. We are not ready. That's not good at all. I'm really worried. But I saw people going, Erik ten Hag's learned nothing. Look at his substitutions. Fucking hell, the whole team got subbed at halftime. That's what happens every pre-season game. It will happen in the United States too. It happened in the States. There'll be 2 teams. They'll be switched over. That's what always happens. It's like we collectively discover pre-season for the first time every year. We do this every year. Whereas if we lose a pre-season game or there's a poor pre-season performance, that's it. We're going to be we've learned nothing. We've learned absolutely zero. We're awful. And if we get more senior players back into the team, and we get a few more weeks training, we're still playing like that, then you're absolutely right to be like, that's really worrying. But it's the first game of pre-season after a week of training, and there's like 4 or 5 senior players in there. And some of those senior players probably won't even be involved this season. Some of them are going to be sold. Like, you know, people like Hannibal. I mean, I'm even when I'm saying senior players, I'm even including people like Hannibal in there. You know, Marcus Rashford, did he do much of anything yesterday? No, not really. Casemiro looked like Casemiro at the end of the season. There was no real difference of him. So the concerns are still there. We already know that. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, again, didn't look very sharp. But then we're getting into other senior players. Johnny Evans. Like, you know, Johnny Evans is a senior player. But if all things go right, he's not going to get many minutes this season. Of course, he did last season because of all the injuries. But that's about it when it comes to the senior players, really. And the rest were academy players. So, I know that, I suppose, I can understand if people were going, I just wanted to see Manchester United play some good football. And yeah, absolutely, so does the manager. So does the manager want to see us play some good football, and he said that about, you know, that's not good enough, and he should be setting those standards. Absolutely, should be setting those standards. Even if it's a pre-season match, every time the whistle blows, you always want to win, you always want to compete, you always want to play well. Absolutely. So I don't push back on that. I really don't, because that's the kind of mentality you need. But what I do push back on, of like, that was nothing's changed with Erik ten Hag. He's exactly the same. That's it. I mean, we could say that, and also as well, like it's going to be a gotcha. So if Manchester United lose the first game, let's say Man United when they play Fulham, they lose at Old Trafford, they'll be like, "See, I told you after that first game against Rosenborg 5 weeks ago that you shouldn't take that result lightly. That result lightly." Like it's got little to no bearing on the season. Louis van Gaal won every single pre-season fixture in his first year as Manchester United manager. And he beat big teams, by the way. It wasn't like we were playing nobody. He beat Inter Milan, he beat Real Madrid, he beat Liverpool, he beat Roma, I think he beat Valencia. Like, he beat all of these big teams. When the season started, Manchester United won 1 out of their first 5 games in the Premier League. Because, again, it doesn't really have that big of an impact. It doesn't. You want to be sharp, and it's not as if you can't take anything away from it. That's the other part. It's not as if you can take nothing away from it. We saw that last season. You get towards the end of pre-season, you go, I don't look very sharp, or we're conceding a couple of chances, blah, 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 blah. You know, you can go, absolutely, we don't look ready. KG said that towards the end of the last pre-season, and he was right. He went, we don't look ready. I just feel we don't look sharp, we don't look ready. We need more incomings. We've been slow in the transfer market. We're not ready. Totally agree with that. Totally agree. Because that at that point, you're like a week or so away from the season. But when, you know, you play Manchester City in the Community Shield, and what is it, like 3 weeks, something like that? Season starts in a month, and you've only got a small pool of senior players available. People are coming back from, you know, continental tournaments, and you've also got other senior players back at Carrington. There's not a huge amount you can take away from the game. There's some things you can take away. You can look at maybe some of the younger players and go, yeah, up against a senior team that's midway through their season, maybe they've got a little bit of a way to go. I look at someone like Collier and go, actually, he looked pretty assured second half. He looked pretty neat and tidy. There might be something there. He's just signed a contract. I'd like to see more of him in these preseason games to see how he plays with more of the senior players when they're back against some of the other teams. And when it comes to some of the senior players, some things are just quite, you know, confirmed anyway. Where Casemiro is flying into tackles, some players look sharper than others. That's kind of it. And also, this is where I think we've got to be careful too. When it comes to the media, did you see the media yesterday? I see Fabrizio tweeting about it. I see ESPN tweeting about it. All of these big accounts with big followings. I hope they have the same kind of coverage of Manchester City, of Chelsea, of Liverpool, of Arsenal, when it comes to their preseason fixtures when they lose, because they'll lose games, because you lose games in preseason. You do. And I hope that they have the same coverage of it, and that's where we need to be careful again, not to buy into it, because if we're doing this, if this is our collective reaction after 45 minutes, because again, you can't even judge really the second half in terms of the senior team, because there wasn't a senior player out there in the second half. But 45 minutes with 4 or 5 senior players after a week's training, if that's our, and I say everyone because it's really not. But if that is the reaction of some, then we are in for a long season, because my goodness me, we are in for a long season, because it was just crazy. And like, I had hoped, and I know I was wrong, and I know that this is never going to change, but I really had hoped there would be, and I really do hope there is, this sort of a bit of just sort of collective unity just to start the season. Just the start of the season. If things go bad and things don't improve or whatever, then fair enough, it's a conversation to be had. But it's just like, it got paused. The season ended. Pause. Let's figure out what's going on. Transfers, manager, blah blah blah. Ball kicked off. It was like boom, start again. And it's pre-season. It's pre-season. If we lose first game of the season against Fulham, I expect a meltdown, and I'd be like, really, really concerning. Really, really concerning. But we just need to calm down. we just need to chill out, calm down. It's pre-season, and I tell you what, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is absolutely right though when he goes to, Manchester United fans won't have the patience for 10 years or anything like that. It's got to be in the next 3 years. Forget that, Jim. 3 weeks. We've got to have won the Premier League title by the beginning of the season. It's it's wild, and I'm interested to see how the goalposts are moved around over the next few weeks. It must be said, because I myself, and I put myself into this, it got to a point last season, didn't it, where it was like, can't talk about the season prior, because we're not in the season prior anymore. Remember this was a legitimate argument. We can't talk about last season because that's last season. We got to deal with the now. We got to deal with what's happening at the moment. So when things were going badly, couldn't really talk that much about third place and Carabao Cup, because no, it's this season. And once the season starts or into pre-season, it's about last season all over again, isn't it? About last season. Last season. It's got to be last season. So, but last season this, last season that. That was last season. Last season's gone. I mentioned this about the players, and I mentioned this about signings, whatever. It's gone. It's done. In the past. That's why I mentioned I was happy when Ten Hag's future was sorted, just because of last season, finished, done, in the past. If we dwell on a really shitty season, we're going to feel pretty shitty, aren't we? Because it was rubbish last season. It was crap last season. And maybe it, triggered people yesterday, because there was echoes of last season in the sense of, I remember this, it was dull, it was boring, and we lost the game. But then I would also say, but okay, so has that put us at the bottom of the Premier League? Does that mean that we're out of the Europa League, or we're not going to qualify for the Champions League? No. It doesn't. And if we dwell on last season too much, we're never going to be happy. We're not. And it's pre-season. Not to say that everything's a blind pass and results don't matter. We'll lose every single game of pre-season and it'll be totally fine. Of course not. But it was 45 minutes after 7 days of training with 4 or 5 senior players. It's wild. Just wild. Absolutely wild. What people are saying here in the chat. Dwayne says, pre-season results are not important. Shape, pattern of play, defensive line, high options in attack, etc. are important. No, absolutely. But I think also as well, again, we're not gonna see the, perfect version of Man United yesterday, because not all the players aren't there. And I don't mean like last season where it's injuries, not all the players there. I mean legitimately senior players aren't there. Academy players are playing. That's massively different. You do have a pre-season. You ask any professional player, they'll be like, just want to get my fitness in, just want to get sharp, hopefully I build up a bit of momentum, and to make sure I don't pick up an injury and miss the start of the season or anything like that. That's what it will be. That is literally what it will be. Brian says, so, he just missed off your saying, but so, if we finish 5th, Owen, we'll say better than last season. It's exactly what I said. Exactly what I said. I said after yesterday's pre-season defeat against Rosenborg, if we finish 5th, it's better than last season. Exactly what I said there. I put it down to a couple of things. I put it down to, one, that I still think that there are some that, I get it, think that keeping Erik ten Hag on was the wrong decision, and they're not happy with it still. And there is this kind of inevitable feeling of just waiting to pounce, isn't there? I'm here, I'm waiting, I'm ready, and I get that, and that might come into the season. If it's into the season, I'll go, all right, fair enough. But after pre-season, it's kind of wild. I think a lot of it is, media do the engagement farming stuff, don't they? Man United sells, Man United drives click. We know this. So they lost to Rosenborg. Rosenborg are rubbish. So that's headline news. And then I think 3. I think just people are just really on edge because of what happened last season. And are just like, I want everything to be fixed. I want everything to be better. And to be fair, we've kind of seen this already with sort of the transfers and stuff like that, haven't we? Whenever there have been positive moves, we've seen, I don't care. It's on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So these guys come in, I don't care, transfers. We do a transfer, I don't care. Next one, I don't care, results. So I think there's this just, I can't really describe what it is, but it's really just, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger involved in it. So yes, but we shall see when it comes to the rest of the preseason. Look, next preseason game is Saturday. Rangers, Murrayfield in Edinburgh. And that'll be quite interesting. Of course, they are in their pre-season. They'll probably be a little bit further ahead. Of course, the Scottish season starts earlier than the English football season. So you would expect them to be a week or so ahead of us. Might be a little bit closer. Of course, we'll have more senior players back by that point. You would expect, probably not Maguire. They said he's still recovering from injury, but Onana, Lindelof, Ahmad, Anthony, Jadon Sancho could be all back, could all be involved. If they're all involved, my goodness me, not to say that would absolutely destroy Rangers, but that's already the amount of senior players that would have returned there would nearly double the amount of senior players that actually involved in the game yesterday. So it's it's just one of those things. I mean, teams lose matches in pre-seasons, and then teams' first matches of pre-season, they're not very sharp. That is what it is. I mean, I remember last pre-season we won our first 3 games, and we had a really shitty season, didn't we? So it doesn't really have any judgment. We beat, was it Leeds, Lyon, Arsenal, then we lost the games against Madrid and Dortmund. I mean, the game against Wrexham again was the academy team. There wasn't really anything to take from that one. But Madrid and Dortmund. Then we beat Lens at Old Trafford. Then we drew with Bilbao in Dublin, didn't we? And then the season was the season that we had. When it came to the season prior, we had a really good pre-season, really, didn't we? It was only towards the end of it we kind of stumbled, and then we had a terrible start to the season. It's just how it goes, isn't it? with pre-season. Yeah, so it is. I remember, you can look at Jose's last season. He had a rubbish pre-season, and then of course he was gone, and he said he didn't learn anything. Fair enough. So it's not as if this is the kind of point of it again, isn't it? It's not necessarily a black and white thing. It's not to say you learn nothing from pre-season, because that's not true. You absolutely learn a lot from pre-season. How sharp your players are, different tactics, different systems, which young players you can probably integrate into the season moving forward, etc., etc. So there's absolutely a lot you can learn, but it doesn't define your season. I mean, to suggest that it does is just, nonsensical. I mean, even your start of your Premier League season doesn't define your season. I mean, you've seen teams that have started the season unbelievably, and they don't even end up anywhere near, let alone the top of the league or qualifying for Europe or anything like that. You've seen teams that have started the season rubbish, and they end up winning the league or qualifying for the Champions League. So that's the start, and that's the start of the Premier League season, let alone the what happens in pre-season or anything like that. So yeah, it's not as if you can't learn anything from it, but you don't want to get too carried away, anything like that. So there you go, guys. That's the transfer view for you this morning. Am I caught up when it comes to super chats? I think I am. A couple here. Red Baron says, didn't win 10-0 yesterday in pre-season. We're now doomed. Remember Louis van Gaal beating Barca and Real in pre-season. We beat Arsenal last pre-season. But it is what it is. And you know what it is? It's quite strange as well. Is I feel like, again, you can't pre-season. You can't really win. If we'd have won yesterday, it would have been like so pre-season. But we lose, but if we lose, we're terrible. If we'd have won any game we win, by the way, in this pre-season, the natural reaction will be pre-season. So cool, glad we won. We got to play Arsenal and Liverpool on tour. You want to win, obviously. When we beat them 4-0 in Thailand a couple of years ago, that was great. And we talk about, the Bangkok Trophy facetiously, but the natural reaction is, it's pre-season though. So, it's not the end of the world. So you can't really win when it comes to it. And Austin United TV says, why did he bench Sancho? Eric Ten Hag out. Yes, indeed. Terrible. Why didn't Xerxes play? Why did Standards on the floor, 2024, Dan Gore. But there you go, guys. It's a transfer view for you today. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. A Flex and KG show-ish is coming later today. You'll see what I mean. So that's going to be coming out later on. So be sure to join us for that. And if anything else happens in between, transfer news, breaking news, incomings, outgoings, we'll be all over it here. So I'm out of here. Have a good one. Peace.